You're doing math with RHB, and we're looking at lesson 28. This starts a whole series on fractions. So we're doing parts of a fraction and the types of fractions, all in lesson 28. Everything's going to go through piece by piece, so this is a whole segment all on fractions. We're going to start slow with all the pieces. This is one of the more complex lessons or groups of lessons in mathematics. If you miss the beginning and don't get it right at the start, it gets very complex very quickly because they're going to throw fractions into order of operations. And if you can't deal with the individual fractions, and we're going to do it old school, no calculator. If you're using a calculator, that's fine, but if you're having difficulty, you might be better to stick to the paper and pencil step-by-step tasks first, and then try doing a calculator so it doesn't add too much into the mix. Yes. I'm going to turn on the overhead, so sometimes I'm a little blurry and sometimes you don't see me. You just hear my voice. That's okay. It's the math that's important. So we're going to start with parts of a fraction. We have a couple of parts here, and how you actually write the fraction. That's important. I have lines like your lines on your notebook or your paper, whatever. Okay, regular numbers are one number per line. Okay, so I have technically 3 lines here, but 2 spaces that you can write in as if they're lines. Fractions have 2 numbers, so they should be written one on top of the other, 2 lines. Don't try and squish your fraction into one line. Just adds to the confusion if you're already having some difficulties with it. Keep it spaced out so you can read it. So if you have 3/4, 3 will be on the top, your line, and that happens to be your division line, and then a 4 underneath. Fractions stand for, I'm just going to shift this up. So we're looking here. Your top number in a fraction, it's the proper fraction, is your numerator. And it tells you the number of parts that are used or the number of parts that are left over. Your total number of parts is your denominator. That's your bottom number. Denominator. Total number of parts available. The middle line. Your middle line is actually a division line. And it always divides the denominator into the numerator. Alright, so these are your total number of parts. So in our case 4. And you end up with 3 parts of 4 either left over. So 3/4, that'd be like saying 75 cents out of a whole dollar. 3/4 of a dollar. Your proper fraction will equal less than a whole number. So you've got 4 divided into 3. That's technically what you're doing. So you put a decimal here, decimal goes up here. How many 4s can you get out of 3? You can't get any. How many 4s? How many 4s can you get out of 30? Because now I'm going to add a 0. That's how we're going to get our decimal. How many 4s can you get out of 30? Well, you get 7, and that would give you 28. Add another 0. How many 4s can you get out of 20? You can get 5. So there's your 0.75. So the bottom number goes into the top number. We're also going to look at your 3 types of fractions, starting with your proper fraction. So that's your first one. And most people see proper fractions. You're looking at the numerator is smaller than the denominator. So a half, 3/4, 9/10 doesn't matter. All right. If the bottom number tells you the total number of pieces that you have, if you have $1, and you have 1/2 of a dollar, you've got 50 cents. Right? If you have a dollar and you have 3/4 of a dollar, you have 75 cents. If you have 10, let's say you have a dollar, okay, so it's going to be in 10 parts. You have 90 cents out of that dollar. Okay, so it's, or you've spent 90 cents, so you've got 1/10 left over. Second type of fraction is called an improper fraction. And that's because the numerator is larger than the denominator. So we have some examples. Unless the instructions of the question request the answer in improper fraction format, and that does happen, most of the time you take these fractions, you have to convert them to what they call the type 3 format, which is a mixed number. And how we convert them is using our division line. You're going to divide the bottom number into the top. How many 3's can I get out of 4? I can get 1. And I'm going to end up with 1 1/3. I'm going to end up with 1 part of the 3 left over. Same here. How many 9's can I get out of 10? Always divides this way. It doesn't divide the other way. Always divides denominator into numerator. So how many 9's can I get out of 10? I can get 1, and I'm going to have 1/9 left over. Type 3 is your mixed numerals. Okay, they're called mixed numerals. Ooh, this one's a little scruffy. Where am I here? No, wrong way. Trying to make sure it's on the overhead. Mixed numerals, or numbers. A mixed number combines a whole number and a fraction. So 3 3/4, 5 9/10. And those are the 3 types of fractions, and those are the parts of the fractions. And we're going to look at how we do some of the converting of fractions.